I was 20 years old and studying. I sometimes babysit in weekends for some extra cash. My friend told me that her parents knew a couple who needed a babysitter, so I told her that she could just pass my number on to them. I got a call from the old couple who lived in this massive mansion on the edge of town. They needed a sitter for their 9-year-old daughter, Lily. They were heading out for dinner and wanted to have a relaxing night off. I figured it was an easy gig and the pay was decent, so I agreed to watch over Lily. When I got there, the couple gave me a quick rundown of Lily's routine, the house layout, and the emergency numbers before rushing off. Basically, they gave me a quick rundown of things and I settled in. The house looked pretty modern from the outside, but had dimly lit corridors and old-timey furniture. It did not surprise me, to be honest, considering they were like 65 or nearly 70. I could tell this was going to be an interesting night. As the old couple left, Lily and I got to know each other a bit. She was a sweet kid, a bit quiet but imaginative. After she had dinner, she drew me a few drawings before bedtime. I tucked her in and let her know that I'd be chilling in the living room while she slept. I went into the kitchen to grab a glass of wine, and as I poured up the glass, I could hear mumbling. I stood still for a few seconds while listening extra carefully. I figured it was just the TV running in the background, so I went back to the living room and continued on my assignment. 30 minutes passed and I figured I could do with another glass of wine. As I got back to the kitchen, I noticed that the windows in the kitchen gave a clear view into another room that was dimly lit. I squinted my eyes, and my heart jumped to my throat when I realized what I was looking at. Dolls. Lots and lots of porcelain dolls neatly arranged on shelves. I hadn't noticed them earlier, but in the dim light, they looked disgustingly human-like, especially from a distance. I tried to shake off the unease. I went back to the living room, grabbed my book, and went yet again back to the assignment. Everything seemed pretty normal until I started hearing a faint voice, like a muffled murmur, coming from somewhere in the house. I glanced around, trying to figure out where it was coming from, but the TV was on, and Lily was supposed to be asleep. But then things took a turn for the strange. As I was reading, I heard soft footsteps down the hallway. My heart raced. I went to check on Lily, but she wasn't in her bed. I then went to the room with all the dolls, but she wasn't in there either. As I went out, I turned off the light completely. The footsteps continued, and that's when I realized that the voice and the steps were connected. It was like someone was whispering, barely audible, mingling with the footsteps. I could feel the hair on my arms stand on end, and the unease I felt earlier turned into full-blown dread. As the panic set in, I thought to myself that I probably shouldn't have been drinking so much wine. My heart raced and my legs was shaking. I slowly walked to the kitchen, and what I saw froze me in place. From the corner of my eye, I saw figures moving past the windows in the kitchen. Human-like figures, and the light was now turned back on to dimly lit. The light that I had turned off just 5 minutes ago. Even though I was a bit tipsy, I couldn't believe that dolls suddenly came to life. So I went back to the room to see what was going on, and there she was. Lily was standing amidst the dolls, whispering to them. Her words were hushed, like a secret conversation between her and the dolls. I called out her name and she turned to me, her eyes wide with surprise. I asked her what she was doing and she just shrugged, like it was the most normal thing in the world. I quickly led her back to her room, my mind racing with a mix of fear and confusion. I stayed with her until morning, and when the old couple returned, I couldn't get out of there fast enough. I never babysat for them again. So I remember this like it was yesterday. I have never ever had such cruel experience. It was a gloomy Friday evening when I got a call from a desperate-sounding woman. She needed a last-minute babysitter for her 5-year-old daughter, Lily. Apparently their regular sitter had fallen ill, and they had a big event to attend. The promise of some quick cash led me to agree, despite my unease about the rushed situation. I was 16 years old at the time. My brother drove me to their house and I arrived at around 7 p.m. The mother, Mrs. Thompson, greeted me with a tense smile. She gave me a quick rundown of Lily's routine, the emergency numbers, and then hurried off with her husband. As they left, I couldn't help but notice how their unease seemed to linger in the air. Lily was a quiet, reserved child with big, curious eyes. She seemed a bit distant, lost in her own world, but kids can be like that sometimes. She didn't say much. I tried to make conversations about her dolls, but that didn't work very well. Eventually, we played a few games, had dinner, and then it was time for bed. As I tucked her in, she looked up at me and said something that sent a chill down my spine. "Make sure you lock the closet before you go. The man doesn't like it when it's open." I was only 16 at the time. Sure, I could babysit a 5-year-old, but stuff like this around bedtime still scared the living hell out of me. I tried to play it cool, thinking it was just a child's imagination running wild. But when I went to close the closet door, I hesitated for a moment. It was an old, creaky door, and something about it gave me an uneasy feeling. Shaking it off, I locked it and headed downstairs. I spent the next couple of hours watching TV and trying to ignore the feeling of being watched. The house was creepily quiet. You know that sound when it is so quiet that the only thing you can hear is a TV static-like noise? It gave me the creeps. I honestly wanted to cry. That's how scared I was, and I know that sounds weird, but I was used to no horror movies or anything like that. So when Lily told me to lock the closet, it really woke something inside of me, and not in a good way. Around 11:30 p.m., I heard faint scratching sounds coming from upstairs. My heart raced as I headed to Lily's room, and the scratching grew louder with every step. I opened the door to find Lily sitting up in bed, her eyes wide with fear. "He's in the closet," she whispered. My blood ran cold as I turned to the closet door. The lock was still in place, but the scratching was unmistakable now. With trembling hands, I unlocked the door and flung it open, expecting to find the worst possible a 16-year-old could think of. But the closet was empty, save for a small, tattered teddy bear lying on the floor. Lily's eyes filled with tears as she pointed at the bear. "He's in there. The man was playing with my bear." I was on the verge of panic. I called the Thompsons, practically begging them to come home. They rushed back, and as soon as they arrived, the strange occurrences seemed to stop. They thanked me for staying and handed me my pay. In my mind, I couldn't leave that house fast enough. But I was scared to walk home alone, so I asked if I could stay inside while I waited for my brother to come pick me up. And thankfully I could. Eventually my brother came. I said goodbye to the Thompsons and ran to the car. They lived down a street that was a dead end, so my brother had to do a U-turn. When I got in the car, I saw a man walk out of the back door of their house, and it didn't look like Mr. Thompson at all. My brother said I looked pale and asked me what was wrong. I said I was fine, but I just wanted to get home. I never told anybody about this before. I'm a broke college student who babysits for some extra cash now and then. I'm scrolling through Facebook one day, and I spot this ad for a babysitting gig. A young mom, let's call her Sarah, was desperately looking for a last-minute sitter for her 8-year-old boy. She was working 2 jobs just to make ends meet, and she was living in this tiny, rundown apartment. So, me being the softy I am, I figure, hey, let me help this lady out. I give her a ring, agree to babysit, and off I go to the most unsettling apartment I've ever laid eyes on. It seemed so spooky from the outside, but inside it was actually pretty neat and cozy. I mean, I've seen worse, so I brush off the creepy vibes and try to make the best of it. Sarah briefs me about the kid, shows me around the apartment, and then she's off to her evening shift. The evening starts off all right. The kid and I play some video games. He tells me about school, the usual babysitting stuff. Then things start to get weird. Around bedtime, I head to the bathroom, and all of a sudden, the apartment is quiet. Too quiet. I call out the little guy's name, and 2 seconds later, I hear the front door creak open and close. My heart's pounding like crazy, thinking maybe the kid wandered out. Panic starts to grip me. I tear through the whole place, checking under the couch, inside the closet, and the kid's nowhere to be found. My mind's racing with a million scenarios. The only logical explanation was that the boy has left the apartment, so I went out to look for him, thinking I could get to him before he gets too far away. I went out on the balcony in darkness, thinking this was the worst possible timing. I went to the elevator, and since the elevator wasn't there, I thought he might have used it. I followed along and checked every balcony on each floor. He wasn't there. The last place to check was the basement, which all the apartments shared. I took a deep breath and down I went. This basement was like something out of a horror movie. dingy, damp, and packed with boxes covered in ancient dust. I gather all my courage and head down there. I was met by all these sounds, like a symphony of creepy machinery. My skin's literally crawling. I'm now walking on this long hallway, very slow, feeling my way through the hallway. I couldn't find the light. The sound of the machinery is getting louder by every step I take. As I get closer, I can hear fumbling just around the corner. Turns out there's no horror show awaiting me. Down there in the middle of the weird machinery noises is the boy, just calmly folding laundry. I'm half relieved, half angry. Like, seriously, kid? I rush up to him, heart still pounding, and he gives me this innocent smile like nothing's wrong. He explains that he often comes down here to help his mom with the laundry. I can't decide whether I'm furious or impressed by this little laundry wizard. Relieved and weirded out all at once, I take the kid back upstairs and he's all like, "Is something wrong?" Like, buddy, you have no idea. I text Sarah to let her know everything's cool and that her laundry genius is safe and sound. She gets back later that night and I'm honestly relieved to hand over the babysitting reins. Thinking back, this is one impressive young boy, just helping out his mother, who is already working 2 jobs. I was really impressed and I came back there multiple times after that, but just made sure what the kid could and couldn't do, and that I wanted him to tell me stuff like this before just doing it.